Welcome everybody to the RFI training for the StratusView product. What we're going to be showing you today is setting up an RFI and using the system to the fullest. I am going to show first where certain things would be set up that would affect the RFIs, and then I'm going to step into the RFI specifically and build one out from the very beginning. So a couple things that will help you in not only distributing but also making sure that things are showing properly would be user groups. In your company setup under user groups, that is where you'll set up user groups for distribution. This would be for meeting minutes, RFIs, anything that you want to do to quickly associate a bunch of people to the CC box. This is what you'd utilize. Another place that you might want to go is within the project setup for the specific project. Why I would want to do that is to go into the project defaults, and then under the project defaults portion is the RFIs folder. Just know that this is working days, that whatever you put in here will be added to the day that the buttons are clicked for submitting for review. The 5 days will be added that for the date due. Also notice that the flow is here, that from subcontractor, contractor, and architect, what those specific folders are here. The reason why is because of the flow for forwarding, which we're going to be showing you shortly. Okay, so RFIs. I'm going to show you from the very beginning to the end the way it's going to be set up. Just understand that if you believe that you will be the only ones writing the RFIs, go ahead and clean this up and just use the one RFI folder so it's a little bit cleaner. Again, to state that differently, that if you are a general contractor or a user, that you know everyone's just going to email you the questions directly and they're not going to utilize making it themselves. Just use the contractor, whatever you call this, a specific folder. Go into there and just type them in there so you don't have all these other folders. But what we're going to show you is how to utilize this. And so I'm going to explain it from the outside, from the folder perspective, and then go in and actually train to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to expect our subcontractors to write their own RFIs. Why this is nice, not only for you, but them, is that they will have their own RFI log with their own numbers. And then also it will separate your log from their log. The nice part is that once the subcontractor writes an RFI, that will come to whomever is the designated person within your company. They'll be able to read that, answer it directly if it doesn't need to go on to the architect or reviewer. If it does, then we'll forward that, and that'll bring it into your RFI log, and then you will not have to type anything out, which is nice. So that is what I'm going to do between this setup. I'm going to go into subcontractor. We have 3 folders here. Something that I do want to show you is that under edit, when you create these items, you will want to make sure that the advanced forwarding into the contract area or whatever that folder is, which would be yours, that it is selected here. The reason being is that if it's not going to the right place when you click the forward button, it's going to whatever folder you designate here. Another thing to know is that this prefix can or cannot, it doesn't matter, go on the front of your RFIs. So since this was blank earlier, when I go into Hill, it'll just be 001 to whatever number. Now if I wanted to put an H in front of those and I update this, when I go into here, I would expect the numbering to be H1 through 6. So just know that that also exists to help you denote different types of RFIs and who they're coming from. That to do that, click on the prefix within the folder structure. So I'm going to create a new RFI from this subcontractor. This is going to be from somebody. Let's just make it from Cassie here. And it's going to automatically go to the project manager for the tenant user, which would be you. Can I move the wall? It's going to be open. You have some clarifications and requests that you might want. Do note that you can create a potential change order here. What that is going to do is create a potential change order link that could later be filled out. Obviously, since this is the intent would be that this would be a subcontractor filling this out, they will not have the ability to create these PCOs. This would only be at the GC level, and if you have the permissions to do that. On the right side are just additional informations. If you want to fill these out, they're not required. It's just to help later when you come back to these RFIs, what's going on. Do I move the wall? There's my question. And then I can choose whether I want people to be CC'd this by selecting who I might want to CC. Just remember that the replies between the subcontractor's RFI are only going to be between the subcontractor and the GC. I can always add attachments to this by dragging and dropping, so I'll go ahead and do that. Can add descriptions to those. When I upload that file, that's going to be added to the bottom of this item here, as you can see with the description. So let me go ahead and transmit this. What that's going to do is mark in the RFI log when this is transmitted if you want to print out a log, or if the subcontractor wanted to print out a log for their specific RFIs. You can see when it was submitted, when it was transmitted, and right now there is no link between these two. So at this moment, the PM has received it. Let's imagine that they're reading this question, can I move the wall? And they say, I don't know, I need to get this in front of my architect. That's when the GC would come in and hit forward. Now remember, in the folder structure, when we hit forward, it's going to automatically go into it, this area, and it brings in all the information. I actually want to keep this closed. Let me update that and show you where it came into. That is going into the RFI section. The contractor section here. So now we're ready to forward this on to the general contractor. I've come in as the PM, reviewed it, saying that the architect needs to go ahead and forward this, or the general contractor needs to forward it on to the architect. I hit the forward button. What that does is that creates the link between the Hill Mechanical RFI number 7 and my contractor RFI 71. Again, the nice point about this is that the subcontractor can have their own RFI log 1 through 7, when you can see I'm already up to 71 being the GC. Everything is already populated in here. The question, the discussion, as I mentioned, is only between the subcontractor and GC in the subcontractor's RFI, so this discussion section is only between the GC and the architect. The one attached document that I had is also part of this. And so there's really nothing I need to do further on this except to go ahead and send it. And I'm going to send this to myself just so you can see what that email would look like. So now number 71, submitted. What the due date, again, remember that's 5 working days based off of that project setup that I had. And you can always go back and forth between these two by using these links. I'm going to bring up the email that I had received. So here I've received it. Know that this third option of view and reply is quick reply. So when you go to your project member setup, make sure that if you want them to be able to answer the RFIs directly from the email, that has to be selected to yes. Otherwise, they will only see these bottom two, which allow them to download and force them to log in. But I'm going to go ahead and view and reply to this directly. I'm going to click on that button. It brings up in their browser an area for me to go ahead and fill this out. I'll expand it. Please use this answer, exclamation. I can also add attachments if need be. So I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop onto that as well. Better answer. Upload it. So now it becomes part of the attachments. You can see who uploaded it, when they uploaded it, and what the description is. And I'm going to post that as the architect. As soon as I post that, it closes out for me. I don't need this email anymore. And now as a GC, I have received an email that I've received a reply. Let me show you that. Reply emails do go out, so you can keep track of it as it goes. It says right here you have received a reply to your specific RFI. So when I come back to the RFI after receiving the reply, I click on the RFI. And I'll notice that the reply that that architect put in there is listed here, the date, what it was, as well as the attachment that went up there with the different description. So now that everything's in here, you can continue the conversation. I think you and then you can have a list of discussions. So this would be the banter back and forth that if I didn't agree with the architect's answer, I would reissue or transmit this so they have another chance to answer this, and all of that history will be posted in here. But for this session right now, we're open, as you'll notice, but I'm going to go ahead and answer this. So I believe this is the correct answer. I'm going to click answer. When I do that, it does a couple things. The first thing it does is it will automatically close the RFI, marks the date that it was closed, and then pulls that discussion that was the answer into the answer box. It also marks this discussion piece as the answered one. If I want to concatenate a couple of these, if I had 10 different discussion threads and I had 2, I just click on the ones that I believe create the final answer. And that will just keep being added onto here. So that's how you actually close the RFI. The nice part about starting from the subcontractor RFI, if I click on that link, is that they're receiving emails as well. And all of those answers that I'm using go up in here. That gives them the chance to come back and say whether they really believe it is the answer or not. So I'm going to click on answer. As Hill Mechanical now, I have closed this one, so my number 7 is closed, and I can always know that 71 is closed as well, since that was the answer that originated it. So that is the total flow of the RFIs. The last thing I wanted to show would be the reports, and just make sure that it's understood what is being viewed there. So in the reports, you can transmit this if you wanted to send this report out or create an email scheduler, just so you know. Landscape will always give you a little bit more detail. You can select the statuses or responsible party if you wanted to filter those out specifically for email schedulers. I'm going to show the overdue in the review, and I'll also show the answers and replies. Why not? I'm going to refresh that, and then I'm going to go ahead and print. So here we go. Here are all the questions and answers in here. When it originally went out, what's the number, what's the subject, responsible party, who submitted it, when it was submitted, the date due is calculated by the project setup, first time it was responded to, when it was finally closed, and how many days it was in with review and days overdue, and the current status. So this is your RFI log, and then obviously you can change this if need be through Crystal Reports requests. So that is everything this week for the RFIs. If you have any questions, please post them or send them to our support so I can get to them and answer them as soon as possible. Thank you, and I hope to see you in 2 weeks.